Hello and welcome back. It's season 2 of the Suffolk Pod Show. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode, and don't forget you can subscribe to the show for free through your favourite podcast directory or from our website.
The Suffolk Pod Show is brought to you by podtalk.co.uk. I'm Mark Mason.
And I'm Susanna Hornby. Episode 41. And Jimmy Doherty is with us, owner of Jimmy's Farm and Wildlife Park. Jimmy is one of Britain's best known and loved farmers. TV star, wildlife expert, entomologist, conservationist and president of the Rare Breeds Survival Trust. He's going to give us the latest news from the farm, tell us more about the important work the trust does, tell us a bit more about his new TV show Builds on Wheels, and talk to us about his lifelong passion for nature and the Suffolk countryside. Welcome, Jimmy. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Good to be here.
Well, I've just been looking at your Instagram page, actually, and it's just full of new baby animals coming in onto the farm and into the wildlife park. Give us the latest update, would you, from the farm?
Well, it never ends in terms of new life birth on the farm. What has just recently been born? We've just had a couple of litters of saddlebacks, which have had fantastic litters. We've had a 10 and an 11, and they are doing really well. Beautiful pedigree saddlebacks. And then we've had a lovely litter of middle white pigs. And what else? A big birth. With lots of cows being born, lots of calves. And what else have we had that has been a big thing this year? Has been the birth of Suffolk's first tapir.
Now, this is quite some news, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's been great, but because we've got a species of tapir which is the Brazilian lowland tapir, and all tapir species are under threat, and particularly the Malaysian species, which is beautiful, it's black and white. But ours mated last year, and we've had the arrival of little Tobias, and they are beautiful creatures. And in their home in South America, they have quite a big range, but in the rainforest, they're very, very important in terms of distribution of seeds. They eat lots of fruits. And when they relieve themselves, they do it in the water. They do it in the river. And, of course, then the seeds are dispersed through the river, which then can grow into some fantastic trees.
A very important part of the cycle, quite literally.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And the tapirs live in our environment quite happily?
Yeah, they're fine. I mean, they've got a lovely big building to go into, and separate quarters which are heated, it's underfloor heating, so they don't get chilly. And then we have a lovely little stream that they can swim in. And they're really unusual creatures because they're sort of semi-aquatic, and they have the same ancestor as horses, but they have this amazing sort of prehensile trunk which they can use almost like a snorkel in the water. And it makes them look quite comical as well. They've got these great big long noses.
And they have personalities too.
They do have personalities, and they are incredibly friendly. And if you go in and start scratching them, they'll roll over. They like a tickle. I mean, who doesn't like to tickle a tapir? They like a good scratch.
To coin a phrase, Jimmy. Yes, exactly. Yeah. We wanted to talk to you particularly about your presidency for the Rare Breeds Survival Trust. This is a very important organisation. Can you tell us a little bit more about it and your role within it?
Yeah, it's coming up to its 50th anniversary being created, and it was created by Adam Henson's father many, many years ago, and particularly because of the Gloucestershire old spot pig was becoming close to becoming extinct. And a group of like-minded people got together and said, we need to do something about this. We need to set up an organisation to protect our native rare breeds of domestic livestock. And it ranges from everything from chickens all the way up to horses. And the purpose of it isn't just to preserve them for the sake of preserving them. It's preserving them for their genetic value, because you never know what we need in the future. And like other countries around the world, these breeds of animals have been selectively bred over hundreds of years to perfectly suit different environments around the country. And to lose them is losing a part of our food heritage. And we can't afford to do that in this day and age. And you think about all our works of art that we have, and we put them in beautiful galleries, and we have to preserve them for the future of the nation. Well, it's the same with our domestic livestock breeds. We need to preserve them. And so the organisation, the Rare Breed Survival Trust, its aim is to preserve all these fantastic breeds of domestic animal and preserve as much of their genetic pool as possible.
And you have many of them on your farm?
We do, and Suffolk is blessed with lots of other wildlife parks and also farm parks that support the trust as well. So Eastern Farm Park, Balham Native Rare Breeds Farm Park, endless organisations and private individuals around the county that support them, and of course, the Suffolk Punch as well, which is very special to the county. Very,
very. I didn't realise they were a rare breed, actually, I must say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. And I think another breed that nearly went completely extinct. I mean, since the mechanisation of agriculture, these beautiful heavy horses have fallen by the wayside, and particularly after the First World War, where so many were sent over to fight, and support our allied soldiers in everything from carting supplies to ammunition, you name it. Heavy guns, all the rest of it. And unfortunately, most of the horses stayed in France and met a pretty sorry end. But now what relevance do a lot of these horse breeds have? And now they're coming to a whole new sphere of different uses, and it's everything from pulling timber out of woodlands for coppicing, everything from conservation grazing. So they really have a relevance.
And apart from anything else, they are absolutely beautiful creatures.
They are. They're staggering. And fingers crossed, we should have 2 foals born early springtime. So we are, fingers crossed for that one.
No, I saw that and I was thinking, I wonder if they'd be born soon. But of course, the gestation of a Suffolk Punch is how long?
It's about 12 months.
12 months, 12, okay. 30, yeah. So it's quite a long innings for the mares. Quite a long wait. Now, your involvement with the Rare Breed Survival Trust goes back a little way, but you're now the president. How did that happen?
Well, do you know what? My love of rare breeds goes back to when I was about 12, 13, and it was watching a Ryland ewe give birth to a beautiful little lamb called Buttons. And I remember that. It was in Stansted Mount Fitchin. It was owned by one of my friend's dads, and he had Dexter cattle and Gloucester cattle. And I used to read the Ark magazine that he used to get, who's a member of the trust. And so I've always been fascinated by our breeds. But I got a phone call. I just got a letter, actually, from Gail Spriggs, who is the chair of the trustees, inquiring if I'd be interested in become president. And I was a bit taken back. I was like, wow. And absolutely. And that was 5 odd years ago. So I think I've been the longest serving president, which has been remarkable. And of course, our patron is HRH, the Prince of Wales. And I've spoken to him on many occasions I spoke to him 3 days ago about large black pigs, actually. And he's a massive advocate for our traditional breeds of livestock, and actually has been a massive support to the trust as well.
And I think very much his message, and I'm sure the message of the trust is obviously educating people, but also securing the future, as you've just mentioned, of our rare breeds. And it's very important to connect with so many different groups of people, particularly young people, who I understand you get involved with a lot. They can come to the farm and they can learn directly with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche to say, but obviously they are the future. And I think there's various projects I'm involved with. And actually, in terms of in Suffolk itself, we have lots of school visits and lots of young people come to the farm. And what we try to do there is show kids and show young people that agriculture and conservation can go hand in hand, and about sustainable farming methods and about having a better appreciation of the natural world. And I think children have that in them. They have that already in them, and we seem to lose it as we get older. So what we try to do is create a space where families can come together and just do simple stuff. So we have, come and do a bit of fishing with Dolly, or go into the woods and build some dens. Because, a lot of us that live in urban areas, when do you ever get to go into a wood and build a den? Everything is fairly, I suppose, everything is fairly controlled. We have areas to play on the park, or if you go on private land, you often get told to sling your hook or whatever else. But to be able to go out and actually build a big old den, and some of these dens, I looked at one the other day. It's about 3 or 4 stories.
Oh,
it's
professional dens.
we have to take every week. We have to take them down, but it just shows you how popular the idea of something simple like den building is. And I think getting young people involved with growing food, agriculture in particular, but growing food and seeing agriculture as a avenue for a career is really important.
Very much so. And like you say, it's built in, it's innate in kids, and that's the trick, isn't it? To catch them right at that stage, so it remains part of their psyche for the rest of their lives. Gosh, let's hope that works, because it's so important. But you were a child when you fell in love with nature. You've had it around you for all of your life. How did all this evolve, Jimmy, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I've always been fascinated by the natural world. And I remember just when I was a kid, the cat used to bring mice home and stuff like that, and I'd be fascinated by them. But I think when I was about, I was about 8 or 9, and I got a friend called Ian Redmile in the village of Clavering, where we lived, and we started washing cars around the village. And I think it was like £1.50 to wash a car and an extra £1 to wax it. But we'd only wax half the car, the half the car that faced the house. So you're going, oh, right. And then the money I saved up, I bought an aquarium. I bought a 2-foot aquarium off of Ian's brother, Kevin. And it had a full complement of fish and everything. And I set that up. And for me, that was like a living soap opera. I was just engrossed in keeping these tropical fish. And then that led on to a whole array of different animals, from ferrets, terrapins. I converted my dad's garage into a reptile room. I converted the carport into an aviary. I remember coming home from school on the bus, and I wasn't very good at building the stuff. I used to put it up too quickly and not really think about the details. But I remember all my budgies got out, and I got off the school bus, and all my budgies were in this tree across the river. It started to rain heavily. So luckily they all took cover in this tree. So I climbed up the tree in my school uniform, and I was just catching budgies and stuffing them in my pocket. But I was obsessed with animals. And then that led me into finding out more about them and reading more about them. And I started then keeping chickens, and I used to read all the David Attenborough books, and also all the books by John Seymour, the Complete Guide to Self-Sufficiency, and Gerald Durrell's Amateur Naturalist, and so it was a very early age, really.
And that just transcended throughout the years until you became of an age where you thought, I actually want to do this for a living.
Well, I did. There was 2 options for me, and I was obsessed with the military, and I was obsessed with the natural world. And I remember writing down, and I wrote down zoology, or I wrote down the Royal Marines, and I really wanted to be an officer in the Royal Marines. So when I'd finished my final year at school, so when I turned 18, I joined the Territorial Army to see if that was for me, and that was in Cherry Hinton in Cambridge in the Royal Signals, and I stayed there for about 5 years. But for me, the military career was taken over still by my love of the natural world, and I read for a degree in zoology and went on to read for a PhD in entomology, and the fascination for particularly insects it really took over. And I suppose that was the end of the military career. Probably also the colour green makes me look a bit washed out. I probably wouldn't be very good in uniform anyway.
Well, I'm sort of seeing the likeness of camouflage, and I think that's about as far as it goes. So, fully qualified, stepping out into the world. How on earth did you take it from hobby to where you are now?
Well, I didn't want it to be a hobby. You see, that was the whole point. I remember being in a laboratory in Coventry University, and I was counting and identifying flies which sounds like a really tricky thing to do because you imagine them all flying around, but they're all preserved.
Well,
And I was looking at the veins on the wings, and depending on the veination, where numbers of veins are, you can work out which species of fly, which family of flies you're looking at. And I'm talking about tiny little things like sesamides and tiny little fungus gnats and things like that.
Yeah.
And then the terrible news of September 11th happened, and I just thought, that could happen anywhere, or what happens if you didn't live your dream and do the things you live with regret. And so I thought, well, actually, academia in a way had turned all the colour and vibrance of nature when I was a little kid catching butterflies, turned it into sort of statistics really, and testing theories and looking at collembola in petri dishes. And I wanted to get back to that, hands into the soil and the vibrance of nature. And the whole keeping chickens, growing food and bits and bobs was going to be a hobby. And I thought, well, actually, I'd rather do it as a career. So if I'm going to do it, I'd rather do it and fail than never do it at all. So I didn't have the welfare. I wasn't inheriting a farm, or my parents weren't farmers. So the best avenue into it was to rent land, and renting land was very affordable and a really easy way to get into it. And then pigs, for me, suited it really well because I didn't have to have prime grazing land. I didn't have to, I wasn't going into arable farming. I didn't have to have huge expense on equipment and things like that. So I could start off with a few pigs. And at the same time, the farmers market scene was really kicking off. And so I started with the market first and worked backwards. I went around lots of farmers markets and top end food shows and had a look at who's doing what and where the market could take me. And for me, the pig was the perfect animal because, one, I could use traditional breeds of livestock, and two, the pig has a number of babies. So it has a large litter. So we've just had a litter of 10, but commercial pigs have a lot more than that. But so a litter of 10, where a cow will have a calf, and then you can raise the pigs within 6 months. I'd have something ready for market, plus the products. So with beef, it tends to be beef, or you can make a beef sausage. But with pork, you've got fresh pork, you've got hams, you've got bacon, you've got sausages, you've got gammon. So you've got multiple products. So it really lent itself to that. And I remember getting the first bit of electric fences up and getting the pigs there. And I had a number of pigs that are ready for breeding, a number of pigs ready for slaughter. And the first thing I created on the farm was a little mini butchery. And I had an old van so I could process and get straight to market ASAP, which is what I did.
Yeah. You butchered yourself?
Yeah, I did a lot of the curing of the bacon. And then I had a butcher come and help. And then I would do about 4 or 5 markets a week, and that went up to 7 markets a week when a friend of mine came and helped, Asa, who's from Bury St Edmunds. He was an ex-Royal Marine, actually. And we used to do lots of markets. So it'd be feeding the pigs in the morning, off to market, come back, cure the bacon, pack up, ready for the next market, or whatever else we needed to do at the time.
And this went on for some time. And at some point, what happened next? Did you meet your wife? Did you start a family? Are you at that stage in your life?
I met my wife fairly early on, and I'd been visiting a pig farm in Cumbria, a chap that I met at Borough Market, and my wife was she was in TV at the time, and she was there filming a documentary, and we met there, and then we met again in London, and I thought, I can't let her disappear. I'm gonna have to try and get her number. So I phoned her up and left a message on the phone. And our first date was I took her to London Aquarium because I could talk about fish, you see.
Yeah,
and it was fairly dark in there. So if I said anything stupid, she wouldn't see me go red. And I remember I had a bit of foil in my pocket, and we walked up to a species of fish called the archerfish, and I started flicking this bit of foil near the tank, and I knew the fish would start spitting at it. And as it did, because in the wild, they would do that to knock insects off of branches and then they eat them. And she thought I was some sort of fish whisperer. She was really impressed by this. And then she came on another date. But anyway, I convinced her to come to the farm when I was starting, and she fell in love with it so much. She agreed to sort of move in, and she was integral to starting the whole thing, really, because she would go to a market, or I would go to a market, or she would stay back and help pack sausages and all the rest of it.
Wonderful. I mean, that is just fantastic to be able to work with your partner and to develop and to build. And you guys have created a massive, well, I can only describe it as an animal kingdom or empire of some sort. Now, you mentioned TV there. Of course, you are now on the TV screen quite often. We see you quite a bit. Have you just finished filming for Builds on Wheels, or is that still ongoing?
We have just finished, and I've got a few more days to do some voiceover. And I have. We're also filming at this time. It is Food Unwrapped as well. So there's always something going on. But Builds on Wheels has been a really exciting project.
Yeah.
And that was for Quest and also for Discovery Plus.
Right. Okay.
And it's been a fascinating show.
And he's your friend, is he, Jimmy DeVille?
So Jimmy DeVille is I've known him for about 5 years, and
right.
we have the same agent as well, and he's often come along to our festivals when we've run the festivals and stuff, and he is a very interesting character, Jimmy DeVille. He was in the Royal Engineers, and he's worked on various different military vehicles and in Afghanistan and Iraq, and been all sorts of interesting stories, and he's driven across the Sahara on a motorbike, but his big love is just changing vehicles and pimping them up and doing all sorts of amazing stuff. And he was the perfect guy to get involved in this project.
For the sake of people listening, can you just describe just very quickly what the show is about and what you guys get up to?
So this show is really born out of this huge I don't know what it is. It's not, you wouldn't call it a club, but it's almost like a movement where so many people are buying vehicles up to renovate into bespoke camper vans. So the camper van scene is really taken off through the whole staycation. And you see those generic white camper vans, and they're very, very popular, and they really serve a purpose. And it gives people freedom. They can just jump in, drive off, have a weekend away, come back, parked outside your house. It's that ultimate escape vehicle. But this is something slightly different now, and I didn't realize there are so many people out there doing this, and people are buying old vintage vehicles. They're buying horse boxes, you name it, anything with wheels, buses, whatever, and they're doing them up as for their ideal camper vans. You can't buy a van at the moment for love of the money, and so this show is really exploring that. So we go out and we visit fantastic vehicles that you can have a weekend away on as an inspiration to my own build. And I bought a vintage fire engine, a military fire engine. So it's a goddess, green goddess. In fact, this one was yellow because it's from Northern Ireland. And so we've renovated that into a camper van. At the same time, I've been visiting about 8 couples that are all embarking on the same adventure of buying up various vehicles and doing them up. It's been fascinating, and and it just shows you how crazy people are, because having a roll top bath in a bus or
I like that.
Converting a horse box. It's amazing. And there's all different couples. There's business partners, there's husband and wife team, they're a young couple in Suffolk that it's basically their first home together. There's another couple that have just sold their house to put into this, and some people are just doing it as an escape for the weekend. Some people are doing it as a relief to mental health problems, or others are going to go and travel the world. Yeah,
absolutely fascinating and fun too. And so it sounds rather emotional too, actually creating a new home from something that's old and reused and whatever. I can't wait to see it. When does it air? Do you know?
So it should be September the 28th.
Okay, fantastic. Right, we'll tune in. Discovery Plus. Thank you very much.
So, yeah, Discovery Plus, or I think you can get it on Quest as well. But I think if you have Sky, I think you can get the Discovery Plus app on Sky anyway.
Right. Okay. Super. This time last year, you were filming Autumn at Jimmy's farm. Is that something that you were going to look at again, or was that a one-off? Because it was.
Oh well, we did. It's interesting because Channel 4 basically phoned me up because when lockdown happened, so many of their regular shows, including stuff like Food Unwrapped or Friday Night Feast, just had to stop because you couldn't do it. So what do we do for original content? And people might have seen there were lots of repeats on TV at that time. But they said, well, could you do something for us? Could we follow what's happening at your place over lockdown? And we said, well, we couldn't. And because it's an isolated site, we were totally void of the general public. The film crew could camp out in the car park. Everyone had tests, so they knew everyone was fine. And then we could put a chef on and feed them all. So it was like having a little our own filming bubble. Yeah. But it was interesting. It was fascinating because it was a time where we were close to the public. It was a worrying time, but also it was a time of strange liberation because we could actually get on and do stuff that we couldn't normally do. So we could get diggers in and build stuff, and I did really enjoy it. If it'll come back, I'm not sure, because I think normal business has resumed in the TV world. But you never say never.
No, it was wonderful, and it just sort of life goes on, and it gave people, I think, just spirit, a lot of hope, and that wonderful sort of feeling that it's all still there, and it will all be there when it ends.
I think there was a time where we were all locked in our houses, and if you couldn't get out to do some exercise or whatever, it was tough. So I think I got a lot of emails saying, "Oh, this is just a bit of normality." It wasn't a show that was filmed on a phone. There was a bit of normality. You could see a bit of the natural world, and I think one. If you could get any positives out of COVID, is that the reconnection with community, but also the reconnection with the natural world, and hopefully that will remain.
No, it's wonderful. What about Mr. Oliver? Are you still? Have you got any plans for any future fun and excitements with him?
There's always plans. It's just getting when our diaries collide at the right time is the thing, and also. The other problem we both suffer from is having too many children. Yeah. So that keeps you quite busy. But absolutely, absolutely. I was chatting to him the other day about various bits and bobs and different ideas. But it would be fun.
Can we go back to the wildlife park now? Because I don't think we've had enough of it. And I just want you to talk a little bit more about some of the very unusual animals that you've got there. And also how people can get more involved with them in respect. Because I was reading about you can actually sponsor some of that anteater. Your anteater is fabulous. He was having a bath the other day. Was I watching that? Was that real?
Yeah, it was. And it's interesting because we really try to create an area that the animals have space and different things going on in their enclosures. And Basil in particular, he's a funny old chap because his little house. He's got this little house, and he has to have two compartments. So if he gets a bit shy, he can move out the way and get out of people's way. And often you'll see him pacing around, and he's always sniffing for various bits and bobs. And he doesn't like it when it's too wet or too damp. But when he comes out, he's got his own little private garden area. Then he comes out of a tunnel into another garden area where there's lots of toys. We often put plastic bottles in there that we have mealworms in, so he can poke his tongue in, and there's a ball in there that has mealworms in, and that's a lovely area. Then he's got another compartment he goes into, a little hatch it goes through, and then it opens up into the woodland, which you can then watch him peeling bark back and using his amazing tongue. So Basil is fascinating, and we put a little bath in for him, because what people don't realise is that they're very good swimmers, anteaters, and he likes getting in a bath. So we put this sort of kid's sandpit in, filled up with water, and he has a good old swim. But incredible creature. But we do have experiences, so we let people get up and close under supervision, and people often buying presents and all sorts of stuff. Of course. But he's a fascinating one. I think the thing that I love about some of these animals, the unusual niches that they inhabit in the wild. He specialises in eating ants and termites, and the equipment he has to do that with his very long, rasping tongue and his powerful claws, and then he's counterbalanced by this long, bushy tail that doubles up as a almost like a duvet at night. He's one of my favourites. I think some of the others
could tell.
Yeah,
by his not only that, but by his luxury accommodation as well.
Oh yeah. He has it. He has it all right. And then we've recently taken on. We work with an organisation called AAP, which is a great rescue centre based in Spain and also Holland. And what these guys do is they go around to disused zoos, or they rescue private animals, or often from circuses, and they have big cats like tigers and pumas and lynx, and they have lions and chimpanzees and lots of monkeys that have been rescued. And we built a brand new enclosure for a group of rescue monkeys, Barbary macaques, which are the monkeys that you see in Gibraltar. And two of these girls were ex-lab monkeys, and one was an ex-beach monkey, lived in a tiny cage. And we were privileged enough to be able to offer them a forever home. And the best thing about it is that we used upcycled containers from the docks here, from MSC, who donated these amazing containers, which really harks to sort of, a part of Suffolk. But also we've turned them into fantastic bedrooms and kitchens for them. And then it's the first time that these monkeys don't have a cage over their head, and they can climb up into the trees. And Adeo, he's a bit cheeky, old Adeo, the male monkey. He will throw stuff at me when he sees me. He'll throw one of the dog toys at me, or he often pinches my brother's bum when he's there doing some maintenance, or even Stan, the electrician. He always unplugs his plugs when he's turning lights off. But one thing he does love doing, he climbs to the top of the tree, and he's fascinated by the train. So he watches the Norwich to London train go past. He loves that. So if you're on that route, if you're getting on the Ipswich and going to Liverpool Street, give him a wave.
Yeah, that's a normal sight to see. Yeah. What was his name?
Adeo. So the monkey is one of my favourites. And then the other exotics that I really love. I mean, you can't really choose a favourite. I love the kookaburras. I love the crocs. Yeah. The butterflies we have. It's hard to pick a favourite, really. Yeah.
No. I'm absolutely. I can imagine. How could you? It's like picking a favourite child. So, now that butterflies, you mentioned them, and that must be something that. It's exciting because haven't you got a new butterfly house? Is it open yet?
Well, we're having our butterfly house recovered because when we didn't run it through the summer because the legislation kept changing where indoor attractions, you couldn't open the indoor exhibits, then you could, then you couldn't. And so we decided not to open it, and we're going to have it recovered and give it a little bit of a facelift. So that should be open again in spring. But the butterflies are always a massive fascination for me. When I was 13, I got a job in a wildlife park called Mole Hall Wildlife Park. £1.13 an hour I was paid, I remember. And I was 13, and I absolutely loved it. And unfortunately, it's no longer there anymore. It's the village of Widdington, just outside Newport in Essex. But when I walked through the doors in this heady, humid environment that was full of exotic flowers and vibrant butterflies from all over the world, I was captivated by that. And that's one of the reasons I really got into studying insects. But butterflies are fascinating creatures in their own right. But what they're really important are indicator species. So, if our butterflies are doing badly, then our environment as a whole is doing badly. And that's the same case with our all pollinated insects, particularly with our bumblebees as well, which I've been heavily involved with recent year. But the butterflies will be open again in spring. But it's lovely because if you're there in sort of Easter onwards and it's cold and wet outside, and then you can go in and be transported to the Amazon or the rainforest of Southeast Asia for a little bit, Yeah.
I can imagine. It really is like that too, going into one of those. It is absolutely, as you just said, you're transported to another world, a tropical world. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think with all the restrictions, no one going on holiday, you can have a holiday for 5 minutes. You know what I mean? It's one of those.
I'm up for that. Now, you just one more thing about the butterflies, and you said that they're an indicator species. And I think there was this great thing going around about a butterfly count app during the summer months. I don't know if you picked up on that. But how is the species doing in Suffolk and in Britain?
There's many species of butterfly, but they're having a tough time of it. So you've got fairly widespread generalist butterflies, like if you looked at things like the peacock and the cabbage white and the tortoiseshell, their numbers fluctuate, but they're not doing so badly. But it's often the more specialist, localized species, like things like the Heath Fritillary or the Essex skipper and things like this that or Camberwell Beauty, Silverwash Fertility, all these kind of things that, the ones you don't often see really need a helping hand. And of course, we've got a very small population of swallowtail butterflies in the Norfolk Broads, which is only one very sort of isolated site. So they're not doing brilliantly, and our moth species aren't doing brilliantly either. And what you've got to think about is that, these butterflies, they're beautiful to watch and look at, but they are really also the building blocks of the food chain that other species rely on. Everything from other insects all the way up to birds and mammals. But we have some great sites in Suffolk, and I think with people being more environmentally minded, hopefully we can secure their future. And if anyone wants to help, I mean, you don't have to have a nature reserve. If you want to help insects, you want to help bees, and if you want to help butterflies, grow flowers in your garden.
Simple as that.
Things like budgie. Let a bit of your garden go a bit wild. You know. So that's what's really important.
And I've always had this conversation with people, and I know it might sound a little bit silly, but how do you handle a butterfly when it's in your house? Because I've heard you're not really meant to touch them.
Well, the whole thing is that you remove the scales from their wings, and that won't actually really kill. That won't really kill the butterfly.
Right.
What happens is when a butterfly hatches out of its pupa, then its wings are very soft. They pump them up, and then they set. They become very rigid. As the butterfly gets older, their wings get quite tatty. So if you're going to pick a butterfly up, just cup it. With both hands. I mean, when I pick butterflies up, I often wait for their wings to close, and I will very gently grasp both sets of wings, because the butterfly has two sets of wings. Okay, so it has 4 individual wings. So I grasp them both together very gently, lift them out and release them. But you can cup them with your hand. That tends to be fine, really. But the whole thing of losing their scales, they lose their pretty patterns, but you won't actually kill them.
No, well, that's good to know. And they don't bite either, so people should know.
No, they don't bite. They've got a proboscis, so they're not going to bite you.
I'll pretend to understand what that word means, Jimmy.
It's a long tube. It's a long tube.
Okay. All right, back to your incredible farm, wildlife park, everything that you have. It really is, what should I call it, a unique natural destination. There's not just that going on. There's lots of other things. You can actually stay at your premises.
We've had a bell tent company running some glamping this year, but we would love to have some permanent accommodation at the farm. So we've had some temporary glamping, which has been a lot of fun. But hopefully next year, if all goes well, we plan to try and put some nice permanent accommodation for people to come and visit, which I'm very excited about, and because I think. The whole area of Suffolk is wonderful, and it doesn't get the tourists it deserves, in my opinion, because in one hand people go, oh yeah, but it's our little secret. But also I think we need to share it a bit more, because you go to the West Country and everyone raves about Devon and Cornwall or Dorset and all that. Or I went on holiday in Wales, which is brilliant. And I think we've got, one of Britain's best kept secrets in Suffolk. And I would like to attract more tourists here, because I think the more tourists we get, the more revenue we have for our tourist attractions, local towns. It's very important.
No, it certainly is. They seem to just drive straight through us up to Norfolk. I always think that. Now, events I've got here. The Big Beef Night. That's something you are actually presenting yourself.
Yeah, so we've done this for a couple of years now, and we started with one event, and the premise of it is that basically we put a whole side of beef up, and it hangs from the rafters, and there's a whole banquet around it, and then we basically do a butchery demonstration and talk about beef production and the benefits of grass-fed meat. And actually, beef isn't the ogre that everyone makes it out to be. And my stand is that that we're eating far too much of everything. But let's not demonize one thing and say it's all down to beef production, because basically, if we're doing that, we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and you can't do that. So it's all about celebration of British beef, and particularly our traditional breeds. We have a lot of fun, and we did this one night and it sold out, and so we extended it to 2 nights, and then we did 4, and then we've got a couple of nights in November. I think they might have already been sold out, and we're looking at doing some more in February. And it's good fun. There's always a lot of laughter goes on, and then people come up, they ask questions. We auction off a lot of the cuts for the Rare Breed Survival Trust. It's a real giggle.
And there's a tasting experience as well, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, there's a whole menu.
There's a whole menu.
There's multiple courses that are delivered, and we try, because when the first little course comes out, it's often like a glass of bullshot or like a consomme or something like that. It's like a bit of, and each dish tells a story.
Yeah.
But often the first dish is quite small. People go, "Oh God, is this?" And believe you me, when they get into the third or fourth, they're like, "Oh, is this going to stop?"
And I'm assuming there's a nice glass of wine to be had with that. So.
Oh yeah, there's all sorts, and some great beer. We often showcase local beers. In the past, we've had Adnams there, and some of their master brewers talking about pairings and stuff like that. And it's good, and people can come up and have a go as well under supervision. Try the hand of it, butchery.
Jimmy, I think I could talk to you for a lot longer, but we haven't got that much more time. So I just wanted to ask about your team. All the people that you mentioned, Dolly earlier, but all of your team. What an incredible group of people you must have around you.
Yeah, we have a great team. We're lucky to have some fantastic people come and work for us, and that's the making of the business. Really, is the people, and I think that it's going all those years back. My wife is absolutely integral to the business, and you'll often see her there, and she'll be working from the finance and logistics all the way to helping empty the bins, serving in the restaurant. And that is the ethos of the business, that everyone mucks in. And you could be, the finance manager, or you could be the wildlife park manager, but at the same time, you better be quite good at helping scoop the ice cream, or, litter picking, and everyone has to get involved.
Yeah. And you have lots of rangers, and do you have a vet on site as well? You must.
We have local vets come in, right. And it's Stowe Vet Group, and they've been brilliant, and we work very closely with them because they get to work with animals that they're not used to working with, particularly if you have trainee vets as well, or veterinary nurses. So. Most of their time it's either livestock, if it's the big animal stuff, if it's pigs and cows, or it's people's pets, dogs, cats and hamsters and whatnot. But often they can come in and they'll be scanning a monkey, or it could be looking at the capybara, or it could be scanning the tapir for pregnancy, which they've never done before. And it's like, this is a great opportunity.
How exciting.
we have a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I bet you do. I really bet you do. Well, I just want to say to everyone, Jimmy's farm is in Suffolk. Go and find on the website. There is so much to do. There is so many exciting things to see and so much to get involved with. Jimmy, thank you very, very much for being with us. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Thanks very much for having me.
I know you're busy, so thank you.
No worries.
Take care. Thank you, Jimmy. Thanks for listening to the Suffolk Pod Show. Find us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, or you can visit our website, podtalk.co.uk. And here's our disclaimer.
The Suffolk Pod Show will not be held responsible for any omissions or errors in its podcast.
The Suffolk Pod Show is produced purely for entertainment purposes. Views and opinions are that of our own or that of our guests.